And just a little background as to why we picked this topic today. We do a lot of one-on-one consultations at the Chamber. That's part of the services that we offer to our members. And during the workforce consultations in the last several months, the conversations have sounded a little bit like this, and it may sound familiar to you as well. Like, I still struggling finding people. We've increased our hourly rate. We've increased days off, and we're still really struggling finding people. So we then started looking at, like, what are some of the benefits in addition to raising the hourly rate, which in some cases was really necessary to bring that up, but what else is out there? So at the Chamber and through the region, we have some amazing members that are doing some pretty innovative and fantastic things to help answer that question around the benefits. So I say all that to say that the panel that's here today represent a lot of these benefits that are becoming things that our job seekers and employees are really asking for and valuing. So things have changed a lot since I first entered the workforce a long time ago. So I'm going to turn it to the panel, and we'll just go down the row and ask each one of you. I'll start here with Data. Just introduce yourself and tell us the company you're with and a little bit about your role there.
David Patrick, National Telehealth Solutions, provide health access to mental health. I'm a partner and in charge of business development, which is a fancy way of saying that I go out and find problems. I have the best job in the company. We specialize in providing access to those employees in their household on a basis. Very, very sophisticated program for that.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Patty Olmstead from the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, and I'm their Senior Outreach Coordinator for the Go Ohio Commute Rideshare Program. At Morpsey, we have a free rideshare program that covers the whole state of Ohio that employers can use for free, and also employees can go on our site to look for people to share the ride with. One thing that we have that really kind of ties into today's, because we feel like retention of your employees is really big, is that we offer up to $5,000 of free money for employers who want to provide a commuter benefit for workforce development at their agency. So we can talk about that more later. Thank you.
But good morning, my name is Colin Page McGinnis. I'm the CEO of Sprout 5, formerly Southside Early Learning. We are a early childhood nonprofit. It's been around since 1922, so 100 years coming up here. And there's a whole slew of things that I will talk about as we go along.
Can everyone hear me okay? I might have to come closer to this. My name is Elizabeth Boyack. I'm Director of Marketing and Communications for Fifth Third Bank here in Central Ohio. And I also help with employee engagement efforts. So we have 500 employees here in Columbus, and we also have 49 banking centers. And one of the things I'll be talking about today is our financial wellness program. We go out into businesses and we teach financial education, because that is a big source of stress for employees. 58% of employees are very stressed about finances. So we have some solutions to help mitigate that.
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? I know I'm supposed to give an introduction, but I just asked everyone to give yourself a round of applause for coming out this morning. Dale Allen, Chancellor WGU Ohio. Just going to talk about ways to keep your employees, to keep them engaged. I'm just excited to be at this panel. I told Michelle she can leave because I'm the worst panelist on this stage, but it's great to meet with people. Looking forward to this great discussion. So.
Thank you. Well, welcome everyone on the panel. And as you can tell by the introduction, we have representation from childcare, from transportation, from education, from financial literacy and wellness, mental health and wellness in the workplace. These are all issues that we know are important, not only to job seekers and incumbent workers, but to our businesses themselves. And we know that because they've shared that with us during our consultation. So I'm gonna pick on Patty a little bit because folks may have noticed that gasoline's a little high right now. That can be a real barrier. It has been a barrier, transportation for workers for many years, even more so now. Patty, talk more about the program that you alluded to in your introduction.
You may not be aware, but 29% of all employees will leave a job sometime in their career because of their commute. Either because it's a long commute or it's too expensive of a commute, they become dissatisfied. So our rideshare program covers the whole state of Ohio, and employees can set up a network for free on our system, and that their employees can either try to share the ride together, or they can share with just your employees, or they can share with anyone throughout the state of Ohio that matches their schedule. So they can go on there. You can do challenges, competitions, you can give incentives for people to sign up, because naturally when you have density, when you have more people coming to your location, you have more matches. Over the years, we've been doing this since 1986. We have really seen that the companies in Columbus that offer a commuter benefit just simply don't have the retention problems that everyone else is experiencing around here. Their programs are so established that when they get a new person in, they're calling us up and saying, hey, I got hired, I'm starting in 2 weeks. Like one company I think of that has a vehicle program says, how can I get onto the vehicle? I come from this town. So anyway, we got thinking about this. It's a very foreign, I bet only 10% of companies in Central Ohio give a commuter benefit. So we said, how can we entice people to do pilots, try commuter benefits for their employees, so that they'll give this a try and see if it works for them. Does it change their retention? Does it make it easier for them to hire? So we came up with a program about 6 months ago called the Commute Action Fund. And it's basically that. It's a funding source that matches you dollar for dollar up to $5,000. So that if you provide a commuter benefit, and that can be a lot of different things. It could be like a share shuttle. It could be our van pool program. It could be incentivizing carpooling. It could be van pooling. It could be riding transit. A lot of different things. We can get creative with it. The only thing we really can't do is get an Uber to bring your people to work, one-on-one, because we're adding to congestion. Nothing against Uber like them, but they just don't meet our grant requirements of reducing road congestion. So anyway, we'll match those funds and help you set up a commuter benefit program. All of our services are emergency or paid through a federal grant, so we don't have any charges to help consult you and help you get your program underway.
So just really quickly, Patty, what are businesses saying that have been involved in this program? Like, what is some of the feedback that you're getting?
Well, what we're hearing is that it's a game changer for them. I know one of our companies was so happy when he started his commuter benefit program. He actually did a testimonial. It's on my LinkedIn site, and it's also on our website, where he did a testimonial. He could not fill up his second shift at work. He was actually, second shift was shutting down because they couldn't run all the lines on it. And he has been able to totally fill up the second shift. He's retaining those people. They're driving all the way from, they're actually taking one of our van pools from Columbus to Newark every day. And he just said it's been a game changer. 2 other companies that's in groups with him from Newark have also joined in, and they're doing the van pool program, and they're providing a commuter benefit to be with that van pool program. But they're saying it's a difference of their company operating and not operating. So I thought that was a pretty strong testimony.
Absolutely. And if you didn't have an opportunity when you came in and checked in this morning, I know Patty has some materials at the front desk that probably go into more detail about how you would participate. And as well as Darcy said, during this conversation this morning, feel free, to indicate if you'd like more information or have a question. Happy to break for that. So transportation, we know, has always been an issue, and we just talked about a potential solution through MARPC. One of the issues that has, again, been in place for many years and has been exacerbated during the pandemic is this access to childcare. Safe, reliable, affordable childcare. I think I hear that pretty much at least every day from businesses that I talk with, and from individuals and friends and family. So Colin, share with us about Sprout 5, and I know that you have some initiatives around standing up childcare and creating those solutions.
Yeah, so actually I'm not loving this. Borrow. So we'll go this way. New York, so I saw finance. This will be much more comfortable for me. So Sprout 5 is an organization both operates classroom-based programming, but then we also have a handful of other initiatives that go around honestly what we've learned over 100 years worth of being in Columbus. So on the programmatic side, the classroom side of the house, we are operating about 250 slots at 4 different early childhood programs, open 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. year round, with an emphasis on supporting the entire family and the whole family. And I'll get into maybe after if anyone wants to talk about how we do that and what that looks like. But 2 other initiatives that we have are our Center for Early Childhood Innovation, which is really thinking about the research of what we can do in drastically reimagining early childhood, both for the child itself and for the family. And then we have a workforce initiative. One of the things that we've been thinking a lot about, though, is this new statistic, which is unfortunate, but 2 out of every 3 families do not have access to childcare post-pandemic, period. Not safe, not high quality, just childcare, period. And a lot of that has to do with the workforce kind of behind the workforce. So it is driven by closures of early childhood programs here in Franklin County, depending on when you looked over the course of the pandemic. Anywhere between 20 and 40% of programs had closed. A lot of that has to do with the pandemic woes stacking on top of a foundation of a sector that honestly had so many cracks in it, we didn't even know how to start fixing it. And then on the flip side, you're thinking of the workforce, which I know we're all struggling with the workforce right now, but in early childhood, when the average wage is about $9.60 some odd cents nationally, and here locally, $10.63, our staff are leaving to go become your new staff because a lot of wages are being shifted up. And early childhood doesn't have the same flex. So those things are feeding into the workforce side of the problem that's driving the access issue. Things that we've been standing up, though, to think through this are some fellowship initiatives where we're leveraging students either in a gap year or when they're taking their summer breaks to come in and start their credentialing. And then another thing we've been thinking about and having run parents through are those that were either laid off during the pandemic or maybe couldn't access employment before. How do we bring them in, get them credentialed, give them a year's worth of training in an awesome organization, full bias acknowledged aside, at Sprout 5, and then leverage them to be that workforce to train them up. So then it gives us the employees that I need to build out programs with employers where we can step into something that we call work learn, which is where we co-locate with employers like yourselves to provide training. Dive into that.
Yeah, sure. If you don't mind, Colin, like share a little bit more about like what that relationship looks like as you're building that co-location.
Yeah, so when we co-locate, we think about the needs of the employer so we can leverage some tax benefits. So we're, I think, in a building full of accountants, maybe they can help you out in the logistics of that. But specifically IRS 8882 is what we're looking at. So that program that now is a federal tax benefit where you can write off about $150,000 from the tax perspective for doing one of 3 things or a combination of all 3. So either building out, renovating, operating, or contracting a child care facility. So when we're co-locating, we're thinking about, hey, our office was just reduced, maybe we're doing some remote work, we have about 5,000 square feet. How can we turn this into a child care facility physically within our space that you all as Sprout 5 run, but we will build it out and leverage it for that tax benefit. So that's kind of the first year that when I think it's easy, then employers start to say, well, how do we do this long-term and leverage that benefit as well? And that's where the other 2 can come in. You can provide dollars to help train the early childhood workforce and have those count also towards that 150 mark. So if you said, hey, Sprout 5, we want to come in and now train these employees that are in the space that we just developed, that could count towards the cost there. And then the third is actually, I think, a little bit easier for employers to step into, but that's resource and referral. So you could either have someone in HR or you can contract out with an organization like Sprout 5 and say, hey, every time I have an employee that's coming in and identifying childcare as a need, can you help us find a really high quality, safe, reputable program, whether or not it is ours, and make that connection. And then you can then leverage 8882 to look there. The latter half of that program doesn't necessarily help with the access side of things, but if nothing else, it's helping to say to your employees, hey, we acknowledge this is a barrier, we acknowledge this is a thing, and we can help stepping that up.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, and I know that we'll have opportunities after we're finished here to hang around and chat a little bit more if anyone wants to have more a conversation with Colin on that. Again, as a parent myself and now an empty nester, I just remember all during my working life having to try to resolve that. And I was very fortunate to have an incredible support system and network, but we know so many people are not that fortunate to have that. Brad.
Colin, where can you, we're fully remote now, so we are not big enough.
So if we're not big enough, we've got 15 full-time employees and we're also fully remote. Do you have advice about what benefits, even if it's as simple as childcare reimbursement if someone needs a babysitter, other benefits that we can offer that you see offering that people can't offer it on site?
Yeah, so from the employer perspective myself and understanding there's a price tag when I say this, just pay your employees childcare. Only because I'll pick on Strat 5 as an example. So despite being childcare, we did not offer childcare as a benefit until May of this past year. So 99 years it took us to say, hey, we should probably offer childcare as a benefit to our employees. You know, it might be a good idea. So what we did, we took the average tuition. So we said, here's the rate that we would reimburse ourselves at, even though it's kind of a wash. We offered that as a benefit. And it's about $10,000 to $13,000 per employee, but then you can do two things with it. One, you can add that into your benefits package and say, hey, your compensation is this, and then you're removing nearly $12,000 of a cost that that person is paying to have childcare. So you're essentially putting that back into their family budget. And then from the employer side of the house, it costs me about $14,000 to train a teacher. So if I'm losing a teacher because of childcare as a benefit, or if I'm losing one of my admin staff, it's going to be somewhere between $9,000 and $14,000 to hire someone new, recruit, train, get them up and running. I would rather just keep someone good and pay the 12 as opposed to put the costs into flip around. So there are ways you can do that. You can offer 50%. If you have your employees in most are coming from a specific region, you can find a provider there and say, hey, can we work out? We offer a discount for employees of Nationwide Children's because we have enough that come down to our location there. But I think just paying, if not all, a portion of that is going to be a huge benefit for your employees. And it's a way to make your compensation packages look that much better. So now you're covering X health insurance, dental vision possibly, and then you have a child care benefit of $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 that you can use anywhere. I would lean into the caveat if you want something that's licensed, you want a program that is rated in the state's quality program, which is a STAR program. I would probably lean away from something like the care.com benefit, but that's also something that employers can do. Lean more into the home-based or center-based childcare. But yeah, I would advocate for just paying. Yeah, so to be step up the quality is the one that you'd want to look for at the state level. If you went to, I'm pretty sure it's childcaresearch.ohio.gov, or you just throw in the Google Ohio childcare search, the Department of Jobs and Family Services has a whole platform that you can put in and say, here's the zip code. I want to turn on licensed programs. I want them to be 3 stars or higher, and it'll give you a whole list of programs in there. Yes.
And just really quickly, in addition to the event today, with all of our experience series, we do a couple of follow-on opportunities. We're going to have a huddle where you as chamber members can come in free here in a couple of weeks and talk more through a Zoom conversation with the panelists. So if you have like some more questions, we'd love to have you continue to do them here now, but I just want to bring that forward, as well as we do produce some content around the thought leadership piece, which will come out in a few more weeks. And we'll have some of these links and some more of this content to share with everyone there as well. So if you're afraid you might be missing something, we've got a couple other ways to make sure that you get the information today. So thanks, and thanks for the question, Brad. So obviously, you know, there are things that we can do in these spaces, and we're working really hard to find people and help them resolve some of these very real problems that they have that are barriers to work and employment. And we know that there are other things that are going on in our workers' lives. Last year, in the 400+ consultations that I did with businesses from the chamber, there were 3 themes that stayed pretty high. Where do we find people? How do we keep people once we find them? How do we connect with interns and younger workers? But what was always bubbling up right there at number 4, and sometimes would pop into the top 3, was mental health and wellness in the workplace. And it presented like this. A member might say to me, we're struggling, I'm struggling, my team is struggling. We've all been through a lot. There's been some collective trauma that we've all experienced. So what are some things that I can do as a business leader to take care of myself, my team, and sometimes my customers and clients? So I want to turn it over to David to talk about this really real issue that we're all facing and that we're now talking about in public spaces and in workspaces, this issue of addressing mental health and wellness for ourselves and for our teams. David, can you share a little bit more about the work you're doing?
Over here. One of the challenges we have when we're dealing with our employer groups is to educate them on what it is we want to do. It's very clear to try to get that understanding out of the gate. There's a lot of existing programs. We hear about EAPs, there's a lot of larger employers that on-site programs. Our program is not designed to replace anything, it's designed to complement. And what we offer for a very low PPM per month per employee is a couple things. Number one, we have no affiliation or we stand alone as a product, so we don't have any underlying plan. For parts, there is not an underlying plan. We are available to all employee classifications, including contractors. So it's important to understand that one of the things we really push with our program is the accessibility that a lot of folks struggle with, whether they're employees. What's very important as well is that employee also most times has a household of some sort. Our program also extends out to that household. So what we cover is an employee's entire household for that monthly fee. Very important to understand too is that there's no restrictions to our accessibility. So one of the things we modified our program, we've been in this space for years in telemedicine and mental health the last few years, is that we found a lot of barriers to entry. Were obviously a huge problem when it came to engaging by the employee for the mental health needs. Things we really push for an employer to understand is a couple things. Accessibility is critical. And what that is 24/7, 365 access. The second thing is very important, and a lot of folks like myself aren't experts in the mental health providing care. I mean, we're a conduit to that care. But the accessibility is important, but also the scalability and what we call a triage system. A lot of times in mental health response, we don't have a great triage system. And the analogy I always use is that, if I have my knee sore, which just looks every year, it doesn't mean that I need a knee surgeon today. If I go to a general practitioner or my doctor and he says, well, you're getting old, we got to do this more exercise, that kind of thing. In mental health care, a lot of folks don't realize that your situation is very important to you. It affects you and your family, or it comes from a family household, but it's not necessarily a psychiatric event. So what we did is we put together a program that has a very comprehensive stage care. You can enter at any point as an employer or member of the household. So we have very, very advanced digital care all the way to full psychiatry. All that is accessible for zero cost and zero copay to the employee in the entire household. We want the accessibility. It's something you'll hear us say a lot if we're engaging with a potential client, is that employee population, regardless of size. So there's nobody exempt from this, whether you're a very small employer or very large. We're all dealing with the mental health care situation in our communities. The thing that's very important to understand is our program is designed that provide access so the silent sufferer, the population has that anonymous access to mental health. There's still such a stigma within populations, whether within student programs, or diversity programs, employer programs, that stigma still exists. And a lot of employees don't engage with existing mental health programs. They do have access to because they don't have the ability to do that on their terms without their coworker knowing, or sometimes more importantly, their employer knowing. It's a big fear for employees to say, I do not want to be part of an insurance claim on my mental health care. I could get fired, I could get promoted, I can miss my promotions. There's a lot of things going on that can be very traumatic to an individual for that care. So what we encourage a lot is our digital programs, and a lot of times get confused with the APs and that kind of stuff. We have no restriction amount of calls. We really are working on triaging mental health care with our program, where we encourage people to progress and gravitate towards self-care with their mental health care system. So our stage program has a digital, which has over 1,000 programs that are very active. It's not just read a paper and be done with it. It ties into your general counseling or counseling sessions all the way to full psychiatry on the need. So an employee or their household member can enter that system at any point. Going for general counseling, for general problems, again, all the way to full licensed care, psychology, psychologist, licensed counselor, full-blown psychiatry, which again, it's all virtual, but has the ability to maintain restrictions, those kind of things, if they need that level of care. So again, critical component, we're talking employer groups understand this is a staged care. Having this program that comes up a lot now from a liability issue becoming more and more prevalent for a lot of employers because a lot are realizing the liability issues that exist in their population, especially with silent sufferers. And not that somebody's going to go berserk, that's not necessarily it, come in and do something horrifying. It's the fact that somebody has a problem, they turn it into an attorney situation. With a mental health care program like ours, it stands alone, that gives a great barrier to a lot of the fears that are growing with employers on now. It's not a matter of if, it's when we're going to have a problem legally with mental health care situation. So this program is designed for the entire population. We don't single anybody out. We don't know who does need it, who doesn't need it. We have great report that is available to the employer, which we call a utilization report. It gives you kind of an overview of what we've done in your population. It doesn't say where Joe or Sally did anything. It'll say here's our top 5 things within your population. We also track very, very religiously because it's very important, especially if the population get larger with employers. Even though we have a great program, employees have a tendency not to pay attention right away. We all know that about employees. So we track the enrollment. So once the employer signs up for our program, it's very important to track that. Oh, we had 100 folks sign up, 60 engaged. We've got to drip those other 40, make sure everybody has this program. So it's very important. Our mission and our educational curve is to get folks to understand this is a very comprehensive stage mental health care program at all levels.
Thank you for that. And it's an amazing benefit, and one that happy to share with our chamber members and others when they approach and ask about that particular issue. I think oftentimes, a business leader is like, I'm not a clinician. I don't know, what to do or what to say, and I have some fear that I could do or say the wrong thing. So having this as a resource is a very good one. I'm going to transition for a minute. Dr. Allen, I didn't forget about you all the way down there. When we talk about education in the workforce and upskilling workers and being able to use that education piece as a not just a benefit, but a retention strategy, and also a building our talent pipeline, share with us some of the work that Western Governors University is doing and what sets your offerings apart from others.
First of all, thanks for the question. Good morning again. As I speak to students as well as employers, one of the things that I hear mainly from the students is that when they go back to school and they're utilizing tuition assistance or tuition reimbursement, how is it actually being relayed within the organization? Individuals go back to school, whether it's certification or a degree, but then it has to come back to the organization to have those professional development conversations on how it's actually going to help them move up. We see a lot of talent leave from one company to the next because they don't have that sense of belonging of, hey, you went back to school to receive your bachelor's or your master's or your doctorate degree. So how you celebrate that student internally? Because at the end of the day, you have to look at that as an investment, whether it's a small company, medium company, Fortune 5, Fortune 1. So that's one of the things that we're seeing. I'll also throw out that I speak to a lot of people now saying, hey, there's this talent shortage. Utilize your universities. Most of them are part of a program called Handshake. And what Handshake does, it essentially gives you access to the graduates or the active students already. So if you need interns, you need employers, utilize Handshake. Handshake opens you up not just to WGU, it'll open you up to Ohio State, Ohio University, et cetera. So that's another key tool. And I'll go back. If someone's going to school, figure out a way to celebrate them. This one example, I was at an organization and our chief financial officer quit. And we had an admin who no one, unbeknownst to them, she was actually a CPA. And she came to him and said, hey, can I help out in this role? And they said, no, just do your job. Understand the talent of what you have there. Just because somebody's in a different role, look at their resume, continue to have those development conversations. Because what we don't do a good enough job of, I think, in a lot of companies is, how do you move people up within your organization? You'll bring somebody from the outside in that's making more money than people are already making. And eventually it's going to leak out and you're going to have people upset. So the biggest thing that I would just tell people is take care of your existing talent. You take care of your talent, you won't lose your talent.
Good call for sure. So we've talked about mental health and wellness, transportation, childcare, the importance of continuing education. Elizabeth, the bank offers some pretty unique benefits for your existing workforce as well. Talk a little bit about, I know you do financial wellness, which is a huge interest for a lot of folks, as well as a maternity concierge program that you offer.
Yeah, the first program I'll mention, since we're talking about how we can add value to your businesses, is our free financial wellness program. We are currently working with 50 companies throughout Central Ohio, and we can pre-survey. The companies will survey their employees on what is on their mind financially. So is it budget and savings? Is it how to boost your credit? Saving for retirement? And then we have our experts come in and we do a lunch and learn, and then we can help provide that information. I do have flyers at the check-in desk with a QR code, so you can actually set up a profile, and then you'll see all the different topics. And then from that, we can see what bubbles up of people's interest, and then we can make sure we're coming in with the education that you would need. And it's just really a nice retention tool for a lot of employees, because the financial stress is a big part of distractions at work. So that is something we offer. We have 50 topics, and the most recent topics that are really coming up right now are debt management, savings and budgeting, and boosting your credit. So we really love this program. And then I did want to mention, we also have the College Advantage folks out here today, Janet and Ben, if you could raise your hands. College Advantage, this is another thing, saving for college, making sure your employees know to get an early start if they're having children. So when we do our financial wellness classes, we can team up with College Advantage. We'll both come out together so you can save time, and then we'll bring you lunch. And so we'd love to help offer that as a benefit. The other program I wanted to mention as just a retention tool for employees is in 2017, we started an innovative program called the Maternity Concierge. So because 1/3 of the female workforce are working mothers, and then our company, 60% of our company are women, that is a really big audience and an indispensable level of talent that we want to make sure our working moms and females are not only succeeding, but also excelling. So we offer this maternity program. So when a woman gets pregnant and has lots of questions and doesn't know what to register for, maybe she needs help figuring out everything, daycare, childcare options, they can call the maternity concierge. And for that whole year, from the time they are expecting, when they go on maternity leave and might have questions, and once they come back to work and they might realize the nursing rooms aren't sufficient and they need some advocacy, our program, we're there to help. So it's a neat perk to consider for your employees, especially if you have a younger, as the workforce changes, whether it's aging or you have a lot of baby boomer, or I mean that in the sense of a lot of young employees who are starting to start families. This is a really interesting perk. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on that as well.
Thank you. So that brings up something that I wanted to just kind of open this up to anyone on the panel and really anyone here in the room. Thinking about what job seekers are looking at right now, and I want to not think of job seekers as a monolith, but Elizabeth, you alluded to this with a younger workforce, a Gen Z workforce. What are you hearing from either your clients or those around you interact with that our Gen Z peer group? What are they looking for as far as benefits when they're evaluating job offers, or whether they're going to stay with an organization? I'll just open up to anyone.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick just because it's been really interesting, and David alluded to it. But one of the things we're hearing when they're coming in to look for benefit options, access to mental health, that is a big one. And we actually offer we have a program, an employee assistance program, where we offer 6 free virtual sessions, but that's also for your household. So similar to what David mentioned. So access to mental health, and then focus on employee development, which he spoke to. Also, ability to work virtual is coming up, and vacation matches. The other thing, benefits, that usually the market standard is 30 days of employment before your benefits start, but we're hearing people want benefits to start on day one. So employees have a lot of leverage right now, willing to take more risk, and employers need to be more, find ways to remove barriers, find ways to be creative, really listen to the needs, and then just try to figure out solutions that are going to work for everyone. So that's what we're seeing.
Anyone else? How do you want to go then, Dr. Allen?
I'll add, I'm seeing that a lot of people are wanting to know about what transportation options they'll have. They want to know if telework can be a part of that, if they can have a hybrid work shift. They're looking for more flexibility than they've had in the past.
I'll add gym memberships is something that we've seen a lot of lately. Also, internet subsidies. And if you think about now with inflation, internet is not a cheap bill. Gym memberships are not a cheap bill. So how do we offset that? I think as we speak about mental health, I'm also one that I always think about it from a career moment as well. Something else that I heard last week when I was in Utah was it's one that where we look at a market analysis on salaries, but people now calling for transparency, ensuring that there's not a pay gap between gender, between certain roles. And so I think those are some things that you can expect to see in the upcoming future.
Talked a little bit there about Gen Z specifically, but from some of the other peer groups, are you seeing anything when we're talking about like Gen X and baby boomers and more of the silent generation? Are we seeing any other trends as far as job seekers and what they're asking for?
This isn't really a job seeker, but in a way it is. As the workforce ages, the retirement and trying to onboard the next level of talent. So we do a lot of talent reviews, mid-year check-ins, making sure we're really connect with our employees at a grassroots level, in addition to all the benefits from the top of the house, but what are we doing locally? So the professional development plans, the talent reviews, because as the workforce is starting to retire, the succession planning is so important. So one of the trends that we're looking at is someone who might be gearing up for retirement, who's a thought leader or a high producer, rather than suddenly their day has come at age 65 and they're gone. Let's start now and look at part-time options. So maybe before they step out, they step down, learn a little, they're there to help coach the next person, turn over the playbook, share all the best practices. So when the day comes, they're benefiting from a little part-time of what retirement might look like, but they're still adding value. So that's something I think interesting, because so many times you think my day will come and I'll be done, I'll retire and sail off into the sunset, but you could really add value in coaching the next level of talent and starting early. So when have that really strong succession plan. So I like that part-time thought for retirement.
One of the things we're seeing in the younger generation workforce through employers, and we're nationwide, so we have a good view of the nation, how things are going. Recent study in Georgia, which is interesting, obviously falls into our lane, is that 1 in 3 employees on a survey done in Georgia would consider leaving their job because there wasn't a comprehensive mental health program available through their employer. So a lot of employers, my generation, we're not used to a lot of these things that are in demand from the younger workforce. It's becoming a critical component that those younger generations to have access to that care and to have a comprehensive care. There's a lot of existing type situations that aren't working as well as they used to, and we're seeing that more and more nationwide. It's a great way to retain those employees. And also it's important that a lot of employers out there have that part-time and seasonal type employees as contractors. Being able to offer that type of benefit to them as well helps retention with that part-time and seasonal type employee as well. And I think that's something that we have to face as employers. We're an employer, everybody's employers here. We have to face the reality of this generation moving forward, and that mental health aspect is becoming a huge part of it.
Let's say I'm a business owner and I've offered maybe all of the solutions that you guys have shared today, or 1 or 2. Like, how do I get the word out? Like what's the best strategy and plan to not only attract people, but also to retain your incumbent workforce and to really celebrate the value that the benefits bring. And I'll just throw that open to any and all.
Well, I'm gonna address that question, but I wanna go back to the last question. By show of hands, how many in here have completed like a employee satisfaction survey? So a great number. One of the key things is ensuring employees see the change. I honestly get tired of completing a employee satisfaction survey and 2 years go by, we're still talking about the same thing. So just make sure that we enact change on that. To your question, it's one that I've started a whole town hall sessions. It's one that as leaders, and I always use quotations, let's be real with our people. Let's have real conversations because people can see through fraudulent things. Ask them truly what they want and what they need. I had one of my greatest learning moments when I was a young officer in the military, and I assumed what the soldiers needed when I could have simply just asked them what they needed. And I started engaging, asking questions, and put ourselves in their shoes. Because at one point in time, we were in their shoes. And starting a business as an entrepreneur is hard. But engagement, it goes back to Maslow's hierarchy. Give people that sense of engagement, and they'll take care of it.
Yeah, I can't reiterate enough of what he said. We're in the process. In a couple of weeks, our employee survey will come out, and we take it very seriously with all the input that comes back, and then we bite it off in chunks. And so throughout the year, we have meetings where we're continuously addressing those concerns. So is it tools and equipment to do your job? Is it mental health services? And then we, in every meeting, we're always adjusting and keeping that language forward so we know we're addressing it, and then we show the results and how we did. So we, similar to the town halls that he mentioned, we do employee cascade meetings. So we do those quarterly, and then that's the opportunity again with the employees to make sure, again, we're addressing these concerns. Here's where we stand today, and just really keep telling the story, because as the person who does the corporate communications, not everybody reads the communications and attention spans are 7 seconds these days. So you have to really be creative and constantly telling the story. So just because you tell it once doesn't mean it's always heard. So we have our regional president in person delivering the message. We follow up with written communication. Then our team leaders reiterate that information in their team meetings. I write about it and put it out there. And I try to do a top 5 in 3 minutes to play off of Fifth Third and make it quick. So when you see that come through, here are these top 5 things in 3 minutes or less is my goal because of the 7-second attention span. So so have fun with it based on your company name and how you meet. And maybe it's WebEx, because if you're still virtual, you know, you have to still do that, but you can do surveys online during the meeting, use the whiteboards and make sure you're really getting that feedback and having listening sessions.
I'll add one thing. I always tell the companies we work with, if you're going to offer a commuter benefit, don't offer it once they get to work. Don't do it on welcome day, because I tell you what, that person may have already turned down your job offer because they didn't know how to get there and their cousin wouldn't drive them there. But maybe you had an option in place they could have took that you're going to tell them about on the welcome day. Or if you get frustrated because people's cars are breaking down and 3 of them aren't getting there because they're sharing a junk car, excuse my expression, to get there. They may not need to buy that car when they found out that you had some solutions for them before they showed up the first day. The problem's solved by the first day. It needs to, those options need to come when the offer is made. And the second thing for retain people, I tell HR people, look at all your people that you're really concerned about, that you would not want to lose them, that you think they're key components. If they're driving an hour or more to work, you better be concerned about them, because they are spending a lot of money coming to work, and they may start, the person who's happy with their job may start looking at other options, because if they're spending over $100 a week to get to work, If they go somewhere closer to work, that's like a $500 a month raise, even if they took a job that paid the same amount of money, so that one more dollar may not keep them, but an option might.
Our challenge, to be brutally honest, when we talk to employer groups, is that in our lane, in the mental health world, you cannot say to Joe, I think you have a mental health problem, and we're gonna provide a service. If you do that, I'd be happy to share my corporate attorney's card. The truth of the matter is that you have to present, because we're still in that weird world of stigma with mental health, is that as an employer, we are offering this benefit to our entire employee and their households. It is of no cost to you. It's unlimited, unrestricted access anytime of day and night. And the perception we hear from our clients is their employees are starting to say, my employer really does care about me. Providing something that maybe I don't even need in my family, but I know somebody I work with is probably going to use it, but they don't have to know for sure. So it's a real challenge to present it like I have a workforce that all needs mental health. That's not a fair assumption, or single out a few of the population. It's just a generalized, here we have it, it's comprehensive, and you and your family have access to it. It's a great way to present an image of care like all the panels have in their programs. These are benefits that are out of the box for the traditional benefits. And I think that's one of the keys to our service, to make sure that employees understand that when we enroll and enroll in the program.
With your job postings, put your benefits towards the top. Don't put your benefits down at the bottom, which is what I think we all do. Usually what happens is folks will look at a job and then they'll get down to the bottom, the pay's not right, the benefit's not right. And it's great that they felt really connected by that nice form opening thing, which we all know is the percent of what they'll actually be doing in the job. Put the benefits up top so you're doing a service both to the potential candidate, but then also yourself. If the benefits are going to be a non-starter, don't fall in love with the candidate in the recruitment process. And, have the conversation in interview too, but be super transparent.
Those are all really great ideas. I love that communication ahead of time, before someone starts their first day and transportation is already an issue. And also, Colin, what you just shared as far as like in that job posting, if this is something that is going to be critical in someone's decision making, put that forward. We could go a whole other event on job postings, believe me. So a couple things I have as we're kind of getting towards the end of our conversation here, but one is the chamber, our Columbus Chamber, has over 2,200 members, and a significant portion is small to mid-sized businesses, and we identify that as businesses that have 50 or fewer employees. When we're thinking through that lens of the small business owner, are there considerations or things that need to be done differently, or we should be aware of when we're thinking of any of the benefits that you offer? Does that create any limitations, or does that create other opportunities? What are just general thoughts on that?
For our program, employer size with population is not a hindrance at all. We don't treat the large employers differently because they're big and have a bigger checkbook or something like that. Our prices across the board for any size group. But I think what we're seeing a lot of traction in the smaller 1,500 type category, normal 1,000 is that having some of those additional benefits that are usually traditionally available to very large employer groups gives a little bit more of an advantage to attraction or retention of those smaller 100 size groups. Now we do a lot 1,000, 5,000 as well. That 100 kind of has a 1,000 but really 100 has a special category of just have a closer relationship with that employee base than some of the large corporations. You don't have that layer of management and the thing you see with large corporations. So I think the population with the chamber, our partnership with you guys, and offer a discount to those members, it's huge to encourage offering another benefit to the small employees. It's 90% of our workforce is made up of small employers, so working our program to track those work for us.
One thing that we've seen nationally is with small employers is that we see CEOs joining together to offer a benefit. Like, for example, I can think of some restaurants that are all like on the same street where they kind of all got together and their lunch shift is at the same time. So they recruited from a certain area and they shared a van full. So everyone could get to work for that shift and they could recruit a little further out by providing transportation. None of those companies had enough people to have a van full. but together, they had enough people to have a van full. So I do see companies getting more creative with their workforce and not being like, okay, you know, it's only my restaurant and we're not gonna talk to any other restaurant. We're seeing them like share those different transportation challenges together to come up with solutions.
From the childcare, I have one employee and pay that, but if you're thinking about co-locating, what does that look like? You want to fill at least 30% of the room, so you can take advantage of benefits, and then maybe you think about how then do you leverage on-site childcare to engage with the community, and that's one additional perk for you as an employer is now you have this level of community engagement where you're not providing the cost of care paid for by your employee versus employee, but you can tap into they can drop a child off, pay like they would anywhere else, and now it's one more touch point with your organization in the neighborhood that you're doing business in or the area that you're working out of. And with us, we range from 2 classrooms up to 9 when we're building out our co-located program. So I think it just depends on really thinking through what does your workforce need now? How do you address those needs? Who might be needing this benefit, whether it's childcare or classrooms up here, and then you really scale. It might not be the dream that you're thinking from the benefit perspective, but you could probably get really close if you can't get exactly what you want, whether you're an employer of 15, you're an employer of 15.
Our financial wellness classes, we can do that for any size company. It tends to be 30 employees or more, but we will do 30 employees or less. And so again, we highly encourage that. We'll bring you lunch and teach finance.
I'm gonna put my small business owner hat back on. And one of the struggles I used to have is resources, right? And so when I took this role over 2 years ago, I wanted to ensure that anything that we were doing at WG Ohio, we open it up as well. So for instance, if there are nonprofit organizations in this room that may need some laptops, reach out to them. We work with some organizations on that because I realized that could be an issue. Patty said something very earlier about collaboration. You have to figure out ways to collaborate. We do, certain credit homeowner workshops as well. We open it up. We work with Women Economic Leadership Development, phenomenal organization. So long story short, I just think we just have to have a conversation of how to help each other. I think when we talk, we collaborate, we make great things happen. So let's just continue the dialogue.
So really quickly, what's next? Are you guys seeing or hearing anything that's like bubbling up to the surface as far as what might be the next benefit that job seekers are looking for and that employers might want to consider regardless of their size?
One I forgot to mention, we have our parental bonding. So a lot of the paternity leave is very important. So many dads, are caretaking as well. So we offer 4 weeks of paternal leave as well. For mothers, they'll have the standard maternity leave, but then they also get the additional 4 weeks. So that parental bonding is very important, and especially for the dads.
One thing we're hearing in feedback on that employers have to think out of the box with benefits. Panels here have out of the box benefit type solutions. It sounds kind of cliche, but it's becoming very real that they're looking at what the benefits are. Everybody's paying similar wages, everybody's paying for the same body. What is separating you as an employer from everyone else? And these type of programs are what I'm hearing more and more about. We get feedback that it's something that I don't have for my traditional benefits. And we're not knocking traditional benefits, they're very important. But a lot of times they're not affordable, sometimes they're not as good as people want. And we look at those additional out of the box type benefits. We hear that a lot in different areas. It's very important to have those employer challenges that every employee can face moving forward. There's no question.
I think it goes back to something Dr. Allen said a few minutes ago, which is so critical, is asking the employees that are currently there and asking those that are seeking opportunities with your organization what's most important to them, and then developing a plan and a benefits offering that matches that. I'm going to turn it over to you guys now. What questions do you have, or what observations would you like to share? We'd be happy to bring those forward.
Hi.
So I've heard a lot of very innovative solutions to addressing maintaining workforce. And something I've been reading a lot about, which I have not heard mentioned today, is the research that's going on in Nordic and European countries around a 4-day work week. Patty, I did hear you mention something about hyper flexibility and scheduling. Are any of the businesses either here today or on the panel considering this as an option for employees? Because you talk about attractive, that sounds attractive to me.
The option for work weeks, a 4-day work week. It's harder for our teaching staff because there's a lot of licensing regulation around that, and obviously unless we all go to 4-day work weeks, which I won't complain about, childcare is going to be a need throughout the week. But for my leadership team, that's something that we're transitioning to. Honestly, as we come out of the pandemic, decide we want to work from home, work from an office. What does that look like? My team's far more productive for 4 days than.
I'll let Rachel and Master work from home 4 days out of the week. I'm totally comfortable with that. So good morning, good to see you, by the way.
I'll say, as we're reaching out to the companies that we've been working with pre-COVID, in Central Ohio, a lot of companies are telling us that they are going to a hybrid work shift, that they may be coming in the office anywhere from 1 to 3 days a week. So, you know, they're still concerned and they're still looking for options to of how to get those people and how to keep them coming in that 1 or 2 days a week. They do want to have FaceTime with them. You know, the landscape's changed. I think if companies, I mean, depending on your job, I mean, some jobs are just essential workers and you have to be at work. But if you've been highly productive and you've worked the last 2 years at home and you've had banner years, those employees are demanding to get to stay home a little bit of the work week. And, you know, and they're touting how much more they're getting done by not spending that extra 45 minutes each way on the highway. So, you know, our landscape is just different. Like a company that's had a van pool program with us since 1986. We just put a couple vans back on the road with them. I have a van coming from Beaver Creek, Ohio to Columbus every day. There's 14 people riding on a 7-passenger van because of hybrid work shifts. And there will never be more than 5 people in that van at one time. They're assigned the day that they can ride on that van pool. So I just say that as an example of how companies are getting creative and doing those flexible schedules to be able to retain that workforce.
What other questions or comments, Brad?
But I'm gonna reach my quota of questions with this one. We just switched to a 4-day work week, by the way, 6 weeks ago. So I'd be happy to talk about it. It's been fantastic. I was wondering, Dr. Allen, if you could talk a little bit more about salary transparency. I know it's not traditionally considered a benefit, but salary transparency or salary studies, that's something that's come up a lot for us lately.
I'll try not to interject my personal experience. One great thing about WGU, our leadership comprised of more women, which is a great thing. But there is that whole gender aspect, and so there just had discussions at the chief human resource officer level. Like, how do we put out true ranges? A lot of times you apply for a job, it's like, oh, the average salary is between 50K to 250K, right? And there's truly not equity in that. So it's been more about putting equity of true ranges, how long you've been there. Think about the military to a certain extent. If you've been in the rank for a certain period of time, you're kind of in a range. And so that's what we've had the conversations on, because we've lost people based upon they would go out and get an offer to make more money, and then we would match that. But then it's like, why did we have to go out and get an offer? Why didn't we take care of it internally? And so it's just more transparency, not like the government, this is your salary, but you're in between a certain range. So that way there again is equity. Again, we talk about equity, but how do we truly enact equity as it relates to pay? Because if you're doing the same exact job I am and very similar credentials, and you're getting paid $50,000 more than me, there's a problem somewhere.
Any other questions while I'm up here wandering around with the microphone? Yes.
More of a statement. My name's Zach Downs. I'm with Gallagher Benefit Services. Yes, that's a plug. But I just want to state, a lot of companies, no matter your size, they do work with a benefits broker. So just make sure whether you're in communication with them or you have the voice that you can talk to HR, CFOs, the C-suite. Your benefits broker should be your guide. They should be helping you with things that are being discussed today, succession planning, communication to your employees. There's so many technology credits available now via the carriers that technology can be free to you. How the employees enrolling, like I said, the technology, anything HR related, they should be able to help and consult with you as well. So just challenge your broker that is helping you with employee benefits. If it's just like a, once a year kind of communication, it should be, they are your guide. They should be available to you at your beck and call. So just kind of wanted to point that out.
I'm gonna do this with Zach. If anybody's interested in talking with Zach at Gallagher, make sure you go and talk to Zach. So there you go.
Any other questions or comments?
My name is Shanice. I am co-founder of Holistic Pregnancy and Wellness Services. We are a nonprofit. Now, I know that today's session is primarily about employee benefits. However, each and every one of you has a service that we somewhat offer or that our target demographic needs, particularly Hispanic as far as transportation goes, because the majority of our target demographic doesn't have reliable transportation to get the services and the care that they need during and after pregnancy, especially childcare and other things of the sort. So not only for our employees, but are there services that, and maybe this is a conversation for later, that I can speak with you all about as far as being able to service our clients?
So I have a team that does that, so I can connect you with them, but we have a whole social work team that's essentially the bridge between other organizations and what their needs are. So I can make these connections.
I have some resources for you as well.
Thank you to the panelists. My name is Lauren Eider. I'm with a company called Improv Edge. We're here in Columbus, Ohio. We specialize in professional learning and development. So I'm curious too, and I came with the intent to understand of all the issues we discussed, and obviously there was probably a number of issues that didn't make that top list. I'm curious what the panel thinks about employers offering continued professional learning and development, how that should manifest, and what those trends look like. As somebody in the industry, I see trends more, if we're going to give you sort of a budget and you as the individual get to decide. But I'm just curious what the prevailing thought is. Is this something that the company should sponsor? Is it something that's expected for the individual to encumber on the topic of professional development? Who really owns that? And is that something companies should be leading with?
Yeah, professional development, that's just a really big part of our company as well. So we have a lot of learning programs, but we incorporate it into our talent reviews, and because we hear when someone leaves, it might have been because they didn't know what the next opportunity was, and that should never happen. They should know their path. So something we just started, we just launched it last month. We have a mentor-mentee program. So it's even if someone is really experienced, they could still be a mentee, because what we're trying to do with a bank, at least there's so many different lines of business, from mortgage to retail to wealth planning and the financial center management. So we're trying to make sure everybody knows all the different jobs. So we're matching up people based on someone in retail may want to become a business banker. So we have just done that on our own at a grassroots level. And then just offering a lot, like we do the tuition reimbursement if someone does want to go back for continued education, and then just a lot of classes on professional development. And there is some years we are told, and maybe we don't promote it as much as we should, but there is a little bit of a stipend if you do want to be, like in my case, Public Relations Society of America. That's where I get my professional development. So I'm given my opportunity to have my dues paid, and then I get to go to all the different sessions, and that's accounted for. So you kind of have a little bit of a budget if you want to pursue, more outside education in addition to what you get on the inside. So I hope that answers your question. The question is, are we promoting it enough in this world where talent is so tight and tough to come by? So you're giving me an idea that I might need to put my arms around that a little bit more and communicate that.
So I'm sorry, Dr. Alvin, did you want to comment?
As a small business owner, I would say, man, like, why are we going to develop this talent and it may leave? I would say develop that talent, because if you develop that talent, they have the right course. And again, it goes back, you take care of that talent, they will stay. Because so many companies are offering tuition assistance, tuition reimbursement, they will find that. So I would say offer a plethora of options. It does not need to be degree offering. It could be professional development, credit, financial literacy, those aspects, because those things could, to a certain extent, be free. Or you can take someone on your team to make them the subject matter expert on some of those things. But I'm a big believer in developing your talent. I look at the great team I'm surrounded by. I hope in the next 3 to 5 years that someone takes my spot, because if they're not, I feel I did a horrible job of not developing that talent internal. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I don't want you to have my job. No, I want you to have my job.
We definitely want to leave some time for folks to network and hang around afterwards and interact with each other and with the panelists. I do want to remind that each one of these topics we could go even deeper into, and to your point, and share more. So that said, please do visit us at the Huddle. Again, it's free to our chamber members on June 30th. It's a Zoom conversation continuing this great conversation that we've started today with our friends and panelists, and also look for our thought leadership coming out in a few weeks that will dig more deeply into these topics. Right now, I hope you join me in thanking the panel for their conversation today.